take you on a journey of empowering change, restoring communities. That's our vision statement, but it's also our passion to see communities restored and changed through bringing hope to people that feel hopeless. We want to bring hope to them and help make a world of difference in their lives. You can be involved by donating funds or gifts in kind. What we really need is not just the one-off donations, but we need people to give regularly. This enables us to be able to manage our programs, to budget them and organically grow through sustainable. Many people giving $5 for going a coffee, for getting their cappuccinos, every week giving $5 will make a massive difference to the lives of people. You can also be involved by going. We have mission trips, humanitarian trips that go to the Philippines and other countries, make a difference in those communities. So I encourage you to be a part of those teams, whether you have a skill or not. We can have tradespeople, nurses, doctors, but also anybody that can go and make a difference and bring hope will be a big part of the change we need. And what if you can't go or give? I encourage you right now to become an advocate. We are needing advocates who will not only share our pages and have birthday fundraisers, but also to be able to have fundraised themselves and help raise money for the cause and advocate on behalf of the people that are struggling. Thank you very much in advance for your help. And let's all together empower, change and restore communities. God bless you heaps, guys. I appreciate you all. G'day, it's Russell Wright, the CEO of Create the Change Foundation Australasia. And it's coming online now to talk about a new initiative that we've started called Cuppa for a Cause. And Cuppa for a Cause is basically about giving up a coffee a week and giving that $5 saved towards our projects. We are finding that all over the world, particularly in our countries we work in, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Nepal and India, that COVID has had a massive impact on the people in those communities. So with this support, we're able to make a difference in their lives, and when broken, hurting situations, we've found we can make a difference with the resource. So giving $5 a week by several hundred people is going to make a massive difference to our cause. So if you can get involved, we'd love to hear from you. Either follow the link below to be able to set up a weekly donation through your credit or debit card, or if you're unable to do it through a credit or debit card, we can give you the bank details if you inbox us. So God bless you heaps, and we thank you for your support of our new initiative, Cuppa for a Cause. God bless you guys.
I'm Christopher Shadbolt, the Director of To the Nations Ministries. We're a mission organisation out of Australia, based in Zambia, working in Zambia, Malawi, Swaziland, Tanzania, different team members going into Congo, Mozambique, and soon to be hopefully going into Zimbabwe as well.
My name is Angela Shadbolt. I'm married to Chris. We live over in Africa, Zambia. So right now we're packing donated items from different hospitals and different groups.
So of all these containers, 99% of the value of the equipment goes to the hospitals. Some equipment will go into the office of the chaplain, and they take care of the customer service areas for the hospital, like they issue wheelchairs. If people come in and don't have any clothes or they've been in an accident, they're there, they issue out clothes. Also, there's prescription lenses, sunglasses and other consumable things that they use day by day. The big expensive stuff goes straight to the government, and they see and place it how they see fit.
Over time, people have just been connected to just bring different stuffs, and we've got Crocs from Aussie Souls, and Rotaries donated some prescription glasses and sunglasses. Executive Gifts donated some bags. For the medical equipment, it normally comes out of hospitals. Bundaberg donated some hospital beds and some mattresses, and other stuff just come from nursing homes, from all over. People just have a heart to give.
So even though there's a team here, there's a small team that's been travelling around, there is a lot of people behind the scenes that's worked hard to see these containers reach this nation. And it might just be donating one item or funding a whole container. Whatever has been given or whatever has been donated is a huge blessing.
The community is very much impacted. They will now look at life differently. They will have role models because there are nurses coming here. There are doctors coming here, there are missionaries coming here. They are now looking at life very differently. Yeah. So I'm sure I tell people, you never know, the next president of Zambia might just be in Chankosa village, you know.
People often ask why, and that's the big question. Why are you giving? What's the reason? You know, people can also be naturally suspicious. Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? We do it because God commanded us to love people, and we love you. God so loved the world, he gave his son, so giving is better to give than receive. So it's a physical outworking of that love.
Okay, we are good to go. Well, here we go. Welcome to 5 Q&A. I'm Glenda here from Create Change Australasia. As a for-purpose organisation, CTCA is committed to empowering change and transforming communities throughout the nations, matching resources to needs by developing strong networks and life-changing partnerships with generous and compassionate people just like you that have joined us tonight. I'm so glad you could come. Tonight, I have 2 quotable quotes for you. The first quote comes from Chip Brogden, who says, "God desires a group of people who no longer think and live as mere individuals, only concerned with getting their particular needs met, but who are more interested in serving God and meeting the needs of each other." As John Piper said, the greatest cause in the world is joyfully rescuing people from hell, meeting their earthly needs, making them glad in God, and doing it with a kind, serious pleasure that makes Christ look like the treasure that he is. I love that. Tonight's guest has spent the last 22 years in the mission field in Zambia, Africa, doing just that. Rescuing people from hell, introducing them to God, meeting their earthly needs, and in such a way that it makes Jesus look like the treasure he truly is. Welcome tonight to Chris Shadbolt from TTN Ministries. Great to have you with us, Chris.
Great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm sure that you'd love to give a shout out to your family while you're here.
Yes. Hi everyone back in Oz. How's everything?
I know that they're probably watching tonight. They were really excited that we were going to be on. So it's great that they could join us. So thank you, Chris's family, for joining us, and friends. That's awesome. You know, Chris, I did a bit of cyber stalking and went on Facebook, and the description for TTN reads like this. It says, "Those smaller number are on the field missionary teams through our global partnerships are impacting tens of thousands every year. Whether we're rehabilitating clinics and hospitals, schools and remote villages, preaching the gospel, planting churches, chaplains in hospital, etc." I love the etc. Building and establishing micro enterprises. My gosh. So you know what? Before we get into our 5 questions, because there's
Yes.
more than 5. But
Yes.
I'd love you if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, about TTN, how you got started, and perhaps you share a little bit of the journey with us, like some of the challenges, and of course some of the highlights. So over to you.
Very good. Well, I'm a married man, married to my wife Angela. She's a Zambian. We got married all the way back in 2002. We have one son, 15 going on to 16, so he's doing his grade 10 year here in Zambia. I first came to Zambia on a missions trip back in 1998 on a small missions team from Mackay Christian Outreach Centre back in then. Came for 2 weeks, stayed for 3 months. After doing that trip, the following year, I did a trip into China with organisations doing trap bombing and distributing that. That was an interesting time. That time was a time where Africa cemented on my heart. Post that trip, after being rescued by an angel, but that's another story for another time, sold the farm and moved to Zambia in late November 1999, and basically that's been my residence there since then. So been here, and then we travel back to Australia to visit churches and keep up relationships. And in the last 11 years when we've travelled back, we've packed shipping containers of medical equipment, education equipment, rehabilitation equipment, and since then I think we've actually lost count. I think we're well over 60 containers through the connections through Operation Lift and other churches across many nations. This year alone will be South Sudan and Zambia, which has been no short feat to be able to do that in these times. It's been quite a challenge, but we've managed to do that, so we're happy. The ministry, I came on a missions trip back in 98. We met a family here, the Salisburys, and their history as missionaries traced back to Rutland Street Chapel, New Zealand, Christchurch, Wellington, back from 1923. So I came and worked with them. That family emigrated back to Australia and New Zealand about 12 years ago, and we've been running the ministry ever since. Challenges, there's plenty. Victories, there's, God's got us here for a plan, for a purpose and a season. I think the biggest challenge that I would say was facing was having to transition from someone else's vision and someone else's calling to be comfortable in our own calling and our things. So what stayed the same was our name, but the way we did it changed. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge we faced, but in that it's also brought the biggest reward in that we're now through chaplains in hospitals and outreaching, and the containers that we ship are like giant keys. We love what goes in them, but that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on what doors they open. And a few years ago, we were talking to the director of one of the hospitals which we have chaplains in, and basically what has happened with having the donations come through chaplains is chaplains, particularly in this part of the world, is not only accepted but expected to operate amongst hospitals. But what really happened was the chaplain went from just a person that would go around and praying for people and interceding and doing preaching the gospel. They became part of the hospital administration because they became a critical key to access of equipment. So what we saw in the spiritual realm was a chaplain going from a spirit of operating under permission to a position of authority. And what's happened as the result of that is when you operate under a position of authority, healing, signs and wonders begin to flow normal because you don't have permission, you have authority. And which caused a slight problem for the director of the hospital because the hospital that we're in had the fastest recovery rates in the country and the lowest bed occupancy rates in the country. So he was being questioned by the department, why do you have the best rates in the country? He turned to us, he said, well, we know medicine treats, Jesus heals, but he says you just can't put that in a report.
True. Wow.
So that basically sums up, that testimony is really what inspires us to keep going throughout the nations with what we do in our current pattern.
Wow. So you've got, obviously over those period of time, you've built extraordinary favour with authorities, with the hospitals, with government, etc. Then
I think that's
make a difference.
Yeah, it makes a difference. Not only just also relationship. Relationship is very important. We've met governments, people change, so that you always have to keep rebuilding. But the big one is consistency. You know, when you've been there that long, when you become part of the furniture, you become part of the framework where people can count on you, that you're not up and leaving, you're not going. Yeah. That brings you to a different level of relationship. That brings you a different level of connectivity. And I think a lot of that, not only that, is over 22 years, the amount of relationships we have. You know, I get a phone call any day. It was someone I was working with 12 years ago, and all of a sudden, another door, another project, another chapter begins.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
never gets boring.
Oh, it's a big plan. Thankfully, we don't get to see all of it. We only get to see the bit we're in charge of.
Amen to that. Well, here we go with our 5 questions. First question is the number 1. Here we go. So the average time for a missionary to be in the field is under 5 years, roundabout.
Yes. Yeah.
But you've managed to clock up 22 so far.
Yes.
What has kept you there?
I guess it depends on who you'd ask. Some people might say just pure stubbornness. But we can give credit where credit's due. Ultimately, it's God. You know, God put me into this position. God's going to take me out when he wants to take me out accordingly. So we give all the glory to God in that respect. We understand God's guided us the whole way. But, you know, I've seen many missionaries come and go, and they've also walked with God. So I think there's a difference between the staying and being seasonal. And we bear the fruits of staying. Being 22 years, the fruits, you know, a lot happens with us doing very little because of the history that's behind us and the relationships that are there. Now, I think the biggest step personally what we did is I stopped being a missionary.
Right.
I stopped. A missionary is missionary would be what I would describe on the little green card when you enter a country which says occupation. That's what I write there because that's the only way I could describe it. But I stopped being missionary and thought, well, my wife's Zambian. I live here. It's easy to be here. It's hard. It's easier to stay than it is to go. So it's that transition. It's like that's what I am. That's who I am. That's who we are. That's what we do as a family. That's what we do as a mission, as a ministry. We just stopped being missionaries. We took that label of us that has a connotation of a season, a time, a start and a stop. We stopped that. You know, there was practical things we had to do to make that happen. We made the decision, okay, if we're going to be here full time, what does that look like? Because you go through why people leave, education, health, retirement, all those things. So that's what we set about. We said, we've got to dedicate time beyond just the ministry to where we set up how we're going to retire, how we're going to educate, how we're going to do our health, how we're going to do all those things. So it sets us up that we're not going anywhere. We're here.
Yeah. So you're resident.
Resident officially I should be. I'm eligible for citizenship. It's just I've got to get up the bravery to go stand in queues and sit in offices for extended periods of time to process the paperwork. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, I get you. I get it.
Yeah,
it would be just so nice if someone just plopped an envelope through your front door and say, "Look, there you go."
Like a birthday card.
Yes.
You've arrived. There it is.
That's it. Well, maybe after 25 years, someone may do that.
Well, officially, that's the number if you're not married to a Zambian. It's 25 years, so I'm a couple of years beyond. So a couple of years and we'll be there.
Oh, my gosh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Actually, you were just speaking of being married to a Zambian. How did you and Angela meet?
We met through the ministry. I was working with her brother-in-law. And through the process of travelling throughout Zambia and even internationally into other nations, I'd actually managed to meet most of my wife's family when we would go to places preaching the gospel, doing crusades. So actually one of the last people in our family I met was herself. So I was introduced to her by her brother-in-law and her sister.
Sounds to me like it was a bit of a setup.
Well, we'll leave that to other people's decisions and the viewpoint. Yes.
Obviously, if they've gone right through the family, you've had the tick of approval all the way until you met Angela. Yeah, so they could have stopped you halfway through, and just said, well, okay, we're heading off in this direction. So obviously you ticked all their boxes as a man of God and a potential husband and father, and the proof is right there, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So, well, we'll say someone else had a hand in it.
I'd say so. And folks, that wasn't part of our 5 questions. That was just me throwing it in there, so.
Sure thing.
Curly ones. Okay, here's another question. There's so much need in the world today. And I know how vast that need is in nations like Zambia and other African nations, third world nations. It can be so easy to get swamped and burned out by doing good works in an attempt to make a difference. So tell us, how do you not get overwhelmed by the many needs, and how do you separate good works from God works?
That's an eternal question, that one.
That's right.
I think, look, to be honest, there's some real truths here, personal truths. Over time, you begin to harden. There's no question about that. When you live in a sea of need, it can be confronting. Over time, you just develop a thicker skin. You harden up. I noticed that when we have visiting teams come through and you see how they react to something that I just take as part of normal routine, things that I see normally, and see how that impacts them emotionally and spiritually. That's the natural side of things. I think the spiritual side of things is you have to really attune your ear. You have to be able to hear and hear. You have to have, in your walk with God, you've got to know when He's speaking. You got to know this is something God wants to do. And I think over the years I've developed that. I know within my inner man when it's to do something. And then the other way is it's handy to be broke.
True.
If you don't have it, you don't have it. So if you don't have it, you've got to ask God for it. And we do that by putting out, through the social media, which has been a great help, and emails and that type of stuff. We put out needs all the time. Yeah. And that's what we've had to learn through and mature through and grow through is sometimes God says yes, but not now.
True.
And other times He sits there and says, yes, let's do it. He's the God of suddenlies, but He's also the God of hold on and wait, I'm doing something else in this thing. So when something doesn't turn out the way we want to and we can be all beat up by it and things, we actually find that 5 years down the track, 2 years down the track, or later down the track, we're back in the same position and it works through in a better win-win situation. So I think that's it. It's a combination. You've got to be able to develop a thick skin to sit there and say, disappointment's going to happen. They're going to happen regularly. I'd like to do this. I'd like to do more, but it's a not now. It's when God says. And then other times you take the victory when you do an appeal, you put it to your supporters, because being here is not about us, not about the family, not about the ministry. We represent so many people, so many friendships, so many relationships, so many people and you hear it from each and every one of them. Look, we'd love to be doing what you're doing, but you're the one doing it, and we're happy to stand with you. What you say, and what you do, you do. We're with you 100%. And that's the strength that we stand on. That is also a very big key of how you can keep going year in, year out.
Yeah. So, you're talking about doing God works and good works. You could get incredibly busy doing a whole lot of good stuff and completely miss what God wants you to do.
Yes.
The flip side of that is that sometimes when you're waiting for God or you're doing what God wants you to do, there are times when you can't, or God is saying, no, I don't want you to touch that thing there, over there, that good thing that you think you could do. That's not where I want you right now. So I guess that's when you're talking about having thick skin, it's being able to walk through those situations, to be able to say, look, I see a need over there, but that's not the need. I can't do that right now because God has called us to go this way.
Yes. I wish I'd say I'd be as spiritual to be able to handle all of that and just, it's the still small voice of God. But I think God knows who I am and knows how I work. And basically, if he switches off the tap, he switches off the tap.
Yeah.
And if I give an example, I've got 2 evangelistic teams I'm trying to, after this current situation, is get them up and going. And, sometimes it's only small needs that they need, sound system, a set of speakers, some transport money. And what they're saying is great. And what you're saying is preaching the gospel. You sit there and say, what time does God say stop preaching the gospel? Well, at the end of the day, if I can't get them there, I can't get them there. It's just not there. I can't. The old money tree got chopped down for firewood a long time ago.
Yeah, do you find that too, being there for the length of time that you have been there, that locally they look at you differently? Like, I know when I've been on short-term mission trips, you often can be looked upon as the cash cow, as it were. You are the money tree, but as you said, the money tree's been chopped down a long time ago. Do you find that people look at you different now? They actually can walk the walk with you, they understand faith better, or do they still look at you and go, he's got the money?
No, look, there's a couple of levels of that. They know that's not the way. They know, like even now with all our village projects, whether it's a school or a clinic or anything else like that, the first thing we look at is, how's this longevity going to work? How can we mentor these people both spiritually, physically, financially, and everything else like that?
Yes.
And I think it's a Western thing to do things fast. It's not a non-Western things to do things fast. And the blessing is in slowing down and looking at the problems, face every problem, find the solution, and in that solution there's always mentoring, there's always growing, there's always maturing, there's always developing. And in that way, what you would like to see done in 2 months is done over 5 years, but that 5 years becomes 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 30, next generation.
Yes.
Again and again and again. And you find if you go that approach, it actually begins to replicate. One, people see how one group have done it and they say, well, we can do exactly the same thing.
Very good. Very good. So it's about longevity, it's about legacy, and it's about sustainability.
Yeah.
Love it. So, of course, we know, today we're facing a completely different world from 18 months ago. And, mission is not as simple as it was for many different reasons. So, in the light of current global events, what are your next steps?
I think in current look, I think we've been given a warning that the stop clock is running very short. We don't have a lot of time.
I agree.
So that's realistically the last 18 months. February, I went back to Australia in February 2019 for 6 weeks. I got stuck there for nearly 7 months.
Wow.
Finally, I could get on a string of flights that got me back to Zambia, and I had to apply through the process, etc., as an Australian, be allowed to leave the country. But left with full knowledge that this could be a one-way trip. Who knows? We're in that time. So it was a point of, well, do we bring everybody back, or do we? Well, this is what we're called to do. So let's just trust God and knuckle down. And that's the position we're in now. We went that road because we didn't hear God say no. Time to come back to Australia. So we came here, we did that. Look, we've rid the second wave, we've ridden the third wave. We're in a reasonable position now, but we'll see what the fourth or the fifth, whatever that as far as a pandemic goes. But for us as a ministry, we know that it's time that we look at everything that we do and just do it faster, harder, quicker, with more intensity.
Yeah.
Because our time is limited.
Yes.
Because now is a time that we stretch our faith, not to stretch our faith that we get to wake up the next day, is just to say, God, you know, we know, we're here, let's do the job.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
Yeah. So you're saying, you know, right now you're going to be very intentional about everything you do.
Yeah, look, it's just we just have to kick it up a gear. We just have to, you know, press in harder.
True. Yeah.
You just got to press in harder. You just got to say, well, okay, where formerly when an opportunity knocked on the door, you'd sit and you think you just got to say, well, let's knock on the door, and if it opens, let's go.
Yeah.
It's a case of we got to do more, not less.
Yep.
We got to do it faster, not slower. So that's where we're in. I think we're going to get close into that time of suddenly. I just hope people see it as we see it. I think it's definitely a time of sifting.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Word of God tells us that without a vision, people perish. And
yes.
I know it's inbuilt in humankind that we have desires and we have goals that we aim for. We become passionate about all sorts of things and pursue them with great zeal, sometimes to our detriment. But in this season, it would be really easy to pull back. And what you're just talking about then, it would be really easy to go, you know, look, it's just too hard. It's you know, maybe feel disempowered or even get down, or, you know, I hate using the word depressed because I just think it's like a swear word, but you know, you can just get down and about not being able to do things as we once used to. So my question is, what keeps you excited? And I think you've kind of nearly answered that. You know, what keeps you feeling empowered and keeps you feeling fulfilled?
I love seeing things get going. I like seeing people grow. I love seeing people grow into where God's called them to be. The reality of it is, even as a missionary, we talk about succession and who's going to take over and that. But I'm not looking for someone to take over what I'm looking to do, because God's got me doing something unique. Someone else may come along, but what I'm here for this time and this season is like our Meshachs that go out and preach the gospel is this. I want to get behind him. I want to grow him, and the Goodsons and the other guys that we've got out there preaching as well. Okay, what's their limiting factor? You know, obviously the limiting factor is not the gospel. The limiting factor is not faith. The limiting factor is other things that keep them behind, you know. Okay, they can go out, but then they're going to put food on the table. And so there's mentoring. So whether we're mentoring them in business or we're mentoring them in fundraising, we're mentoring them in structure or plans. So what keeps me going is empowering people, is encouraging people, is building into people. Like this year in February, we sent a container into South Sudan. That's the second container. You know, we put a container of medical equipment in the first one. We went there and we visited. We found all the equipment in hospitals. But it was just so exciting to see their evangelists and the people that were in the field when we went and visited some of the works. Like we went and visited this little rural church where they built out of mud and put some metal roof. At that point in time, was just far enough out of town that when the container arrived was at the same time there was some civil unrest and a whole region was displaced. So all the women and children just walked for about 3 or 4 days and arrived to the city. But because there was no space for more refugees in the city, they just had to camp in these floodplains which go underwater on the edge of the city. And they literally turned up with what was on their back. Nothing more, not a stitch of extra clothing, not a pot, not a spoon, absolutely nothing, completely displaced people. But here's these guys that have been out there planning a church, and all of a sudden an entire community turns up on their doorstep. And then at the same time, within days, if not hours, a container arrived. And in the container, between all the hospital beds and wheelchairs and crutches, was a myriad of shoes, clothes, pots, pans, bed sheets, and everything else like that. And for them, they were an answer to those people. That's what inspires me.
Wow.
That's what drives me.
Yes.
That's what drives me. You know, like in 2016, a young lady who goes to our church came and asked my wife to be on the board for school, or set up a school for autism. Angie said, "Oh, Chris is better at that than me." So I went to we have a couple of little businesses. I went and sat with her in the office to hear out. And my first question was, "What's autism?" You hear it, but you really don't know what it is. Now we're 2021, we've got a school running. At that point in time, we were the only thing, let's call it a thing, because really we were making it up. We were making it up as we were going along, people. Auntie Google was very helpful.
Thank God for Google.
We were cutting and pasting like true champions.
Good on you. Love it.
We're the first in the country.
Wow.
We're probably the first thing north of South Africa and south of Kenya or Egypt, for half a billion people.
Wow.
It's just like now we're a school. Well, we're a school. We're in we got ways to grow, but we got 47 kids coming along, and in the last 6 months, we've had 3 non-verbal children speak.
Wow.
We had I don't know whether it was a CP or a neurological disorder child that wouldn't or couldn't walk, stand up and take steps.
That is just awesome. That is awesome. I love it.
But I wasn't called to Africa for autism. I was just called to Africa to see people's visions come forth.
Yes.
So, and even that young guy, like we were talking about Red Claw, I'm a marine biologist by trade. Before I came to Africa, I was a prawn farmer. One of the young men I'm mentoring is harvesting and getting fishermen to collect red claw, an Australian species of crayfish, here in Zambia within 5 kilometres. Nice thing is I'm getting a kilo of red claw for about $2.20. Which is nice. I got them on for lunch now. If you could smell garlic red claw.
That is cruel beyond
with salad.
Oh.
But here I am in my actual training, mentoring a young guy, developing an industry which we have flights and everything potential to export.
Yes.
A pest species here that is just, and then changing diets and seeing people feed on something that it's easy to catch, it's cheap, it's there, it's available. So once again, it's mentoring a young guy, being there, encouraging him. At the moment, through his winter, I put food on his table by buying 10 kilos of red claw, buying 10 red claw. My dogs love red claw. It's one of their favourite meals.
Oh, that's not fair.
But that's what excites me. Is it doesn't look. I'm not a man from the pulpit, so I'm not there getting guys and teaching them how to preach or anything like that. It's just all the gamuts, whether it's schools, clinics. Whether we find a clinic in the community where there's a pastor that's planted a church and the clinic has got no equipment, or we have a container, which we've got one at port now, so I'm expecting it to be here in the next 4 weeks. We've got another one in Mackay. We had a budget, and we set the budget in May, and we raised the budget, but due to the current circumstances, the amount of freight coming to Australia is very limited. So that means the boats going are very full. So they're jacking the price because so we've got a bit of a stretch there, a bit of faithful, but God knows the times and the seasons. So another 40-foot container. And like even that, with that container, our plan is with the churches that we've worked with. We've had a chaplain in one of these hospitals for, now 25 years. We're going to rehabilitate one of the wards that the church has been sponsoring. With what we've just gone through in the third wave, where all the hospitals are running more than 100%.
Yes.
What a better time to be packing in a stack of medical equipment through the officers' chaplains. And then the next lot of containers is a lot of tools and equipment for skills training. So
Wow.
more doors opening up with orphanages and skills training for the underprivileged, the youth. You know, we've got like a crazy amount of unemployment because even in the seasons, but also that is so. It's just mentoring, getting people established. You know, why replicate myself when I can help other people replicate themselves? You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've got heaps of questions coming in, so I'm going to ask you those in a minute.
Sure.
But my last question is always the same. How can our listeners help you to sustain and support the great works that you've established and continue to establish in Zambia and Sudan and wherever God sends you? What can people do?
This is where I put the puppy dog eyes on, is it?
Actually, I thought of putting my dog on. You know, I just thought like I could put Charlie because she's cute. Put her on.
Yeah.
No, just Look, just shoot from the hip.
At the end of the day,
how can we help?
At the end of the day, the reality is you can do more with more. That's for certain. There's no beating around the bush with that. So that's where we are in that respect. And then, you know, what can really help is come along on the journey with us. Be a part of the cheer squad. You know, with social media and everything else like that, obviously people watching now are obviously on social media. Well, like our page, like TTN Ministries, like Uncontained Love, like me, send me a friend invitation. Become part of the journey, become part of the team, become part of the cheer squad, and through that, you know, as relationships build and as heart grows, you'll find where you can plug in, because I'll give you plenty of opportunities to say, yeah, that's me. I love that. Happy to do that. Can't do anything at the moment, but happy to pray. Or, you know what? I know a dude that can fix that. Or I know someone that is keen. And then if the time and the season, and if we get to that point that, you know, the world opens up, even if it is for a brief minute, to get on a plane, get on a boat, ride your bicycle, however it is, come along, have a look, see, get involved, lay a brick, do a screw, put a Band-Aid on, pull a tooth, do an eye test, you know, we got a bit of a space for everybody, whether it's sewing, pulling teeth, you know, nailing, painting, preaching, mentoring, you know, come with the right attitude, and it's all good. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well. Chris and myself and the team are ready to respond to questions. So if you send them in, type them in the comment section below, we'll do our best to answer you. You're going to be brave. Ask that question that everybody else is wondering but's been too scared to ask. Or maybe you just want to know more about what Chris and his team are doing. You know, what's it like in Zambia? What's the hospital system like? Do children have access to education? Can you get the internet? Which you can because you're on it. So, yes. You know, but that question could be important to you. So while those questions are coming, Chris, I've got a couple. Here's one. David Ballard.
Yep.
How's
Hey, David.
Jankosa,
yeah, they're going well. Because of the current situation, schools have been shut. We've only just opened up 2 weeks ago. They've been shut since May, so a part of that is also being shut down. And then also because they're only just a health clinic that does birthing and those sort of things, a lot of the other services have stopped just because they just don't have the control capacity and the training to handle positivity and all those sort of things. So a lot of that stuff had to be referred to the major centres. So it was beyond their training and beyond the capacity, a lot of their stuff. So they had to, a lot of what we've been doing has retracted, but as we're getting now down to 2% positivity, we're now winding up again.
Awesome. Well, I have a couple of questions from a woman by the name of Robin Flegler. You may or may not know her well.
Friends on Facebook.
Yeah. She said to ask you to tell everyone about the Caleb Centre for Autism, which you started to tell, that TTN has been instrumental establishing the first for Southern Africa. And she asked you to tell us how autism was handled by the community.
Yeah, autism, those that are aware of it, is a neurological disorder or condition, however you want to describe it. So someone with autism they're not most of them aren't disabled in any respect. They can walk, they can move about and everything else like that. So having no awareness of autism, and that was even from the simple things from school, health departments, doctors, health system, there was been basically no diagnosis. And when Nellie, the mother to Caleb, whose centre's named after Caleb Centre, when her son was diagnosed, he would have been one of a handful, literally a handful. And this is back in 2015. Yeah. Only a handful of children that had been diagnosed or had been diagnosed. So over the years, one of the main things we do with the Autism Centre is awareness, because we find families with autistic children, and the ones that we deal with usually are on the far end of the spectrum, non-verbal, high incapacity to be social, along those lines. They're typically just locked up.
Wow. They're
just locked up at home, locked in a room. You know, we did a project for a lady, a single mum. When the husband noticed there was something wrong with the child, he took off. So she raised her son, which is autistic, and then two other children who weren't autistic, or older than the autistic child. So she raised him alone. So she lives in a compound. There's no support or anything else like that. So she would literally have to lock her son up at home. And while she went to go do some piecework, she would come home and find the child feasting on what he defecated. We also have a pastor, a friend and a wife. Their son is now an adult who was autistic. They found out later in life that was what his situation was. He had whenever they would buy anything or they'd acquire anything, a fan, maybe a TV, something real big items. If they ever went out, they'd come back, they'd find he'd pull it apart. So not knowing what autism was, we were not sparing the rod.
Oh.
And there was a lot of come out, come out, come out.
I was going to ask.
And a lot of beating, and having a meeting with her, with the parents, as they're sitting there in tears. Their son is now basically a vegetable. And they said basically we made him that way.
Wow.
We disciplined him into that level.
Gosh.
Because we didn't know what autism was.
Yeah.
Autism was unheard of. It wasn't even, no one knew.
Wow.
We just thought it was demonic.
Yes. That was
so
my
we
first,
tried.
My first thought. I thought, yes.
They went to beat a demon out that was not there. Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
And then we find that in the educated, in the part of society, because autism's across the board.
Yes.
You can be the former president of Tanzania's grandchild is autistic.
Yeah.
To the poorest person in the lowest village.
Yes.
Autism's there, and it's across the board. Whether it's 1%, 3%, 12%, the numbers is less important, the fact that they're there. So, but this has given us a great avenue into a community that has needs. A community that feels so isolated and at times can feel so ashamed. So even the fact to publicly, not vindicate it, but publicly just show, but hang on, it's not your fault. It's not this. It's not that. It's just autism. That's it. Full stop. Nothing more. So you've done nothing wrong. You are not at fault. That in itself is a breakthrough to some people. That in itself just lifts a burden off their own lives. And we've seen this, man. The way we see this change now is, like our little autism school, we struggle to keep the doors open. We're still trying to find the funds to pay the staff the little they get this month. But our PTA, or the parents of the children, as much as they couldn't even pay, most of them can't even pay the tiny amount to pay for school fees, they're getting together as a family, as a community within themselves. They've found a piece of land, they've acquired a piece of land. We've got 10 hectares of land. And this year, this wet season, they want to farm it. They want to put in 4 hectares of 4 hectares of soybean. That soybean crop, if they work hard and do it right, will cover half the school's costs for 6 months.
Wow.
So that was like one of the last appeals that I've done, was I want to raise the funds for the inputs. You know, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it right. You know, you can't plant a seed and walk away. You've got to tend it, you've got to fertilise it, you've got to spray it, you've got to do all this. It's a cash crop. And then they're going to grow in sunflower to make their own cooking oil. So it's a high-grade, more natural product for the children to eat. And then they're going to grow maize meal, which is a white corn, and keep it a whole grain, which is also healthy for the children to eat. So they get at least one full meal a day at school as often as we can. We try to do it every day of the week.
Wow. How many have you got at the school?
On the books, we've got 49. We have to run a bus. So the days that we can run a bus, we can get, between 17 and 49 to get them in school. Because a lot of the families they live in all various parts. Being a lower income, they live in compounds, and essentially compounds are on the outskirts of town, high density mud huts with grass roofs or tin roofs. So they're a bit further away from the central locations, because no matter where you are, you're always going to be away from somebody.
Wow. I have a question from Sue Cowley, who asks, is autism on the increase?
We haven't done
is it on the increase, or is the awareness on the increase?
We're increasing their awareness.
Yes.
Definitely. Like from 2016, where we were the first, we now see online support groups. There's very few physical places in other cities. And that's usually started by parents. That's started by parents with autistic children, or they get that diagnosis. They finally get an understanding of why their 4-year-old only eats sausage, or only wears this clothes, or, they've got to that point. Then all of a sudden they ask the same question I asked, well, what's autism? So, and that begins their journey.
Yeah.
That begins how in their gifts, their talents, their network, how they make it work for them, how they create community. And so that's part, like I said, look, we didn't come to Africa to be part of autism. It's just one of the things that we do, and it's where we are now. So it's one of the things we do, and it's one of the things we've been able to do through lockdown as well. So our teachers...
That's awesome.
So as while we haven't been able to have a school for them, our teachers have been going home by home, and they've been doing things which we take for granted, teaching a child how to wash their clothes, teaching a child how to cook a meal, teaching a child how to brush their hair. Some of the things we even do in our school, even how to use a toilet, how to wash your hands after you use a toilet. Create the habits, learn how, spend time with the children one-on-one and see how they acquire skills, and then educate the parent is, okay, you don't speak, you have to do it this way, or you have to do it that way, because every child is different.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
Yep.
They're unique. I notice here this is not a question, this is actually a statement. And again, from your Facebook friend, Robin.
Yep.
Your very good Facebook friend. In the container about to arrive in the next few weeks, there are many hospital beds, including 8 almost new ICU hospital beds valued at $7,000 each. That's pretty extraordinary.
The amount, over the years, by value of the equipment that we've sent across the various nations in Africa has got to be pushing well over 10 million.
Wow.
Well over 10 million without blinking. It's probably more.
Yep. Who sources this? Who sources this stuff for you? How do you find it?
I was first going to
How
give
does
it
it find you?
Well, let's go back a little bit. I don't, if we can remember years ago when there was that major tsunami when Banda Aceh and a lot of that region was devastated. Now, in that process of that, there was a group going around collecting medical equipment from different hospitals and different things, and they were packing it and sending it to that need. Now, through the process of the time, for reasons unbeknown to us, it stopped. So a phone call was placed to the church that I had come out of from Mackay, and from the local hospital Mackay, and said, look, we've got a stack of beds here. They're just sitting outside. If you want them, take them. If you don't want them, we'll dump them. They will be collected for A, B, C, D. And that's how it started. And that came through contact Bev Armson. She's now late, from Brisbane, and she was collecting stuff and sending it to Israel, but it was beyond her geographical reach. And so that was 12, 13 years ago, and we sent our first 12-foot container. And at that point in time, I received, would have been an email saying, we've got this, do you want it? And back then I was busy, and this is what we started with, I was busy doing someone else's vision, struggling.
Yes.
Burning out.
Yeah.
And then I went to our local church and said, look, there's a container. We could have a container with medical equipment. It's not what we do, but would you be interested? And then only to hear that they'd been sponsoring a hospital ward for 10 years, and they've had a chaplain in a hospital for even longer.
Oh, gosh.
And on that day is what's birthed the vast majority of what we do for the last 12 years.
Wow.
So where it comes from, well, there's the physical places, hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, everything else like that. We're at a point, we're at an exciting point. Not this year, the previous year was a little bit tight because back, as you know, all the hospitals were saying, well, we've got to hold on, we've got to hold on, we've got to hold on. And that's the case now, where we are now. They're still doing the same. We've got to hold on, we've got to hold on. We've got to be spaced to have so many thousand beds, etc., etc. But even in the midst of that, what we've got now has come from nursing homes, and where they visit hospitals have upgraded because there's an emergency. So a lot of stuff got upgraded. So the stuff that was almost new, barely used, wasn't to the sufficient upgrade. So we received it. So friends, it's like the people out there in Facebook land, they hear, they see, they hear, they say, oh, such and such has got this, our name is passed on to someone. We've got a guy from up in the Sunshine Coast, he sells slippers, Aussie soles. Go out and buy a pair of Aussie soles, okay? Because they help us a lot, Aussie soles. Best thongs, best putters in the world. Trust me, I wear them every day. We must have put 250,000 orthopedic slippers on people in Africa.
Wow.
Has to be over 250,000. Wow. It might even be 1 million now. I don't know. Like even in this container, we've got several thousand pairs. So whether we're going into a village where people don't have shoes, or kids don't have shoes, or adults don't have shoes, or whether there's jiggers in some of the countries we wear, which is a parasite that grows through the foot, we could put shoes on people. Or we find a widow. We find like the lady that can't find a job. We give her 200 pairs of shoes. That's not what she does, but she sells it, she makes an income, she creates capital, and boom, 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 away she goes. But in that process, we help.
Yes.
We give her the capital, the stuff to sell, well, then we create good habits, good business, good techniques. Okay, you sold this, yes, you have to buy this, buy that, but use this to buy tomatoes. Yes. So when you're selling a shoe, have a pile of tomatoes or have a pile of charcoal. Yes. Charcoal's usually pretty good because it doesn't go bad. There's no lossage. People use it every day. So shoes opened up a door for mentoring.
Yes, and start some micro-business, micro-industry.
About 8 years ago, we put a stack up into Lake Tanganyika where there was a series of evangelists planting churches all around the lake. Those evangelists were able to sell shoes, put food on the table, build a place to meet, and build a house to stay in.
Wow, that's just phenomenal. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that we could keep talking and you could keep sharing these incredible, extraordinary stories all night, and I could listen to them all night as well, because I know you get excited telling them, we get excited hearing them. And, the Word of God tells us we overcome by the word of our testimony, the blood of the Lamb, and testimony builds faith. And so these, as you've been sharing, I know that it's got to be speaking to the hearts of people watching and saying, listen, I can be involved in this. I can actually, I can do something. It's like you said, just come on the journey with you. And it's when you're part of the journey, then you never know when your moment to supply a need might be. I know that, according to information that we're receiving on this end, there's been things like sewing machines for women to have small business and micro enterprise, and that the containers. Here's a question. This is a bike repair shop in a village.
Yes.
Oh goodness gracious me! How many containers have you actually had over the years, do you think?
We've lost count. Well, okay, let's say 3 this year.
Rightio.
3 this year. We're doing 3 this year. We average 2 and a bit a year. Yeah. And we've been going since 2009. But there's been a couple of years we've done 3, a couple of years we've done 4. The odd year we've done 1. But yeah.
So what do you do with the containers?
Each nation's a little different. For us at the moment, we, like the one we're receiving now, is what they call Line's Own Container, LOC. So the shipping container is owned by the company. So it comes here, we unload it, and away it goes back on the truck. We never see it. Okay. We don't see it again. It's not ours to hire. But the one that went to South Sudan, it's being used as part of a shed. They've built a compound where they're people that they train up to go. Like in South Sudan, what they do is they train people to become grief counsellors. That nation's just been through 25 years of civil war. So no one trusts no one. So that's their avenue for the gospel, is to go through and through grief counselling, bring healing, bring restoration, and add the gospel and cry Christ in it. So them, it's part of their compound where those people come and stay, where they are training, they live there. The second container we've got in Mackay, our plan at the moment is we've been financially, just due to current income levels across, particularly here, we've been doing the best we can to carry the missions team, the orphanage at church, and a couple of other departments. So I would like to work with the church, and we get the container put into a public area that has good trading, and we'll convert that container into 1 shop, 2 shops, 3 shops, where the income monthly can go and support those parts of the church's outreaching teams. Right. So the chaplain, the orphanage, and the evangelism team.
Awesome. Yeah. That's a great plan. Yeah. Well, Chris, I'm going to say this has been an absolute pleasure, and I know your lunch is cooking and smelling really good.
Yeah.
And, being as it's lunchtime where you are, like I said at the beginning, at Create the Change, and the same with TTN, we're about empowering lives, we're about transforming communities, and of course at Create the Change we love to champion our friends and our colleagues who are doing the same, and it's been an absolute honour and a privilege to have you on with us, and for us to just be able to just come alongside and help you to, share the story and do a little bit of the journey with you. And
sure.
Our team below have got a link, and they'll have a link there to the ministry where $1 makes a difference. Every dollar changes a life. Every dollar, more than $1.
Yes.
It's really hard to quantify what $1 means in places where you're working, and you've got these kids. You need funding for teachers at autism school, amongst other things.
Yeah.
Every dollar counts, and
yeah.
So I want to encourage the listeners tonight, if you want to be part of this extraordinary work, the easiest way is to sow into it. It's good seed in good soil, and it's bearing great fruit.
Amen.
So go to the page and press like. Go to Create the Change page and press like, because just like Chris was saying, we're in the same business, and having people come on the journey with you makes all the difference. All the difference. So if I had Charlie here, the dog, which would be do the cute ending, but she's not. We just want to say good night, good afternoon to you.
Yes.
And thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been great. Cheers.
Awesome. Well, we bid you all good night, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are, and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks' time for our next 5 Q&A. See you, Chris.
See ya. Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
I'm Christopher Shadbolt, the Director of To the Nations Ministries. We're a mission organisation out of Australia, based in Zambia, working in Zambia, Malawi, Swaziland, Tanzania, different team members going into Congo, Mozambique, and soon to be hopefully going into Zimbabwe as well.
My name is Angela Shadbolt. I'm married to Chris. We live over in Africa, Zambia. So right now we're packing donated items from different hospitals and different groups.
So of all these containers, 99% of the value of the equipment goes to the hospitals. Some equipment will go into the office of the chaplain, and they take care of the customer service areas for the hospital, like they issue wheelchairs. If people come in and don't have any clothes, or they've been in an accident, they're there, they issue out clothes. Also, there's prescription lenses, sunglasses, and other consumable things that they use day by day. The big expensive stuff goes straight to the government, and they see and place it how they see fit.
Over time, people have just been connected to just bring different stuffs, and we've got Crocs from Aussie Souls, and Rotary's donated some prescription glasses and sunglasses. Executive Gifts donated some bags. For the medical equipment, it normally comes out of hospitals. Vanderburg donated some hospital beds and some mattresses, and other stuff just come from nursing homes, from all over. People just have a heart to give.
So even though there's a team here, there's a small team that's been travelling around, there is a lot of people behind the scenes that's worked hard to see these containers reach this nation. And it might just be donating one item or funding a whole container. Whatever has been given or whatever has been donated is a huge blessing.
The community is very much impacted. They will now look at life differently. They will have role models because there are nurses coming here. There are doctors coming here, there are missionaries coming here. They are now looking at life very differently. Yeah. So I'm sure I tell people, you never know, the next president of Zambia might just be in Chankosa village, you know.
People often ask why, and that's the big question. Why are you giving? What's the reason? You know, people can also be naturally suspicious. Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? We do it because God commanded us to love people, and we love you. God so loved the world, He gave His Son, so giving is better to give than receive. So it's a physical outworking of that love.
I'd like to take you on a journey of empowering change, restoring communities. That's our vision statement, but it's also our passion to see communities restored and changed through bringing hope to people that feel hopeless. We want to bring hope to them and help make a world of difference in their lives. You can be involved by donating funds or gifts in kind. What we really need is not just the one-off donations, but we need people to give regularly. This enables us to be able to manage our programs, to budget them and organically grow through sustainable. Many people giving $5 for going a coffee, for getting their cappuccinos, every week giving $5 will make a massive difference to the lives of the people. You can also be involved by going. We have mission trips, humanitarian trips that go to the Philippines and other countries, make a difference in those communities. So I encourage you to be a part of those teams, whether you have a skill or not. We can have tradespeople, nurses, doctors, but also anybody that can go and make a difference and bring hope will be a big part of the change we need. And what if you can't go or give? I encourage you right now to become an advocate. We are needing advocates who will not only share our pages and have birthday fundraisers, but also to be able to have fundraised themselves and help raise money for the cause and advocate on behalf of the people that are struggling. Thank you very much in advance for your help. And let's all together empower, change and restore communities. God bless you heaps, guys. I appreciate you all. G'day, it's Russell Wright, the CEO of Create the Change Foundation Australasia. And it's coming online now to talk about a new initiative that we've started called Cuppa for a Cause. And Cuppa for a Cause is basically about giving up a coffee a week and giving that $5 saved towards our projects. We are finding that all over the world, particularly in our countries we work in, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Nepal and India, that COVID has had a massive impact on the people in those communities. So with this support, we're able to make a difference in their lives, and when broken, hurting situations, we've found we can make a difference with the resource. So giving $5 a week by several hundred people is going to make a massive difference to our cause. So if you can get involved, we'd love to hear from you. Either follow the link below to be able to set up a weekly donation through your credit or debit card, or if you're unable to do it through a credit or debit card, we can give you the bank details if you inbox us. So God bless you heaps, and we thank you for your support of our new initiative, Cuppa for a Cause. God bless you guys.